halfway through the Moroccan desert, I realized I wasn't on a road trip, I was being held hostage. Welcome to part 8 of my Spain and Morocco series. Last week, I talked about how we took a day trip to the Essaouira market, which was partly enjoyable, partly not enjoyable. And after returning to Nswam, I started thinking about the rest of my trip. And I had already had plans to cap it off in Marrakesh. I had 2 full days already planned there. But because I wasn't surfing, because 2 posts ago, I talked about how after 3 times of surfing in Morocco, I basically determined I'm tired of torturing myself in the cold water, the gross wetsuit, the reckless conditions. There was zero reason to put myself through that. So after 3 times of surfing on a 7-day surf retreat, I decided I'm just done surfing. And we went to the market that one day, so that got me out of surfing. But then there were still several more days. And also, I didn't want to be sharing the room in Nswam. It was cold. It was dusty. I am not even exaggerating. I felt like, I think I've said this before, but I felt like Pigpen from Charlie Brown, how he was always surrounded by a dust cloud. That's how it felt in Nswam. Because as soon as you got out of the shower, it was just another breeze of dust would just coat you with dust. And I was just sick of being dusty. Because even my laptop, there was this indoor area that it had sliding doors so people would come in and out. But when I had my laptop in there and was working, even with the door shut, it would still just be covered in dust. Everything was dusty. I was sick of sharing a room, the room that I wasn't told that I would be sharing for the same price as the single room. And honestly, I was just over it. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to spend an extra day in Marrakesh and maybe that will be better. Well, the joke was on me because, first of all, so I contacted the hotel to add an extra night onto my room. And they were like, we definitely have another room, but it's not the same grade of room that you already have booked, but we have this much, upgraded room for you. And it was twice the price. This was a 5-star hotel, but in US dollars, it was still pretty cheap. I think this significant upgrade was still less than $400 a night or something. And again, I was so desperate to leave. I'm like, fine, I'll take it. So I actually ended up having 2 different reservations at this hotel, one for this baller room, and then the other one for 2 nights in the other room. And then the other thing was the transportation to Marrakesh was included with the retreat if I left the day the retreat ended, because there were other people going to Marrakesh. Well, since I was leaving a day earlier, I had to pay for my own transportation, which again, in US dollars, I think it was only $100. And by only, it's a 4-hour car ride. So that was actually pretty cheap. It was actually even cheaper than the $200 Uber in Spain for the 45-minute drive. So, and again, I was just at that point, I was like, I will pay anything to get the hell out of here because I'm over it. And for anyone who's read my book, in 2019, my book is Running in Slippers, by the way. It is a memoir that covers this 5-year total train wreck period of my life. It's extremely vulnerable. And the reason I wrote it that way is because I don't feel like we talk about the shitty things that happen in life. So the entire goal of the book is connection through vulnerability, because we don't connect by being perfect. We connect by being real. And as part of the book, in one of my experiences, I went to Guam to dog sit for 5 dogs, and it was so horrible. And the interesting thing is that chapter in the book is a fan favorite. There's 2 parts in the book that people loved, and one was Guam. I got the most feedback on it because ultimately, even though it sucked, it was kind of comical in hindsight. And so my hindsight reflection reflects the comedy. But anyway, so I started thinking on this trip, I'm like, is this worse than Guam? Because Guam was the worst. But I honestly don't even remember, because I don't know about you guys, but ever since 2020, time has just felt like a total time warp. So I don't remember anything anymore. So anyway, I don't remember if it's worse than Guam, but I was definitely having those thoughts at this time. And I was so eager to leave that as I was hugging everyone goodbye, I think it showed that I was eager to leave. And at first I felt bad, but then I was like, nobody like really gave a shit about my safety after I blacked out. So why would I feel bad if they're offended if I'm eager to leave? So my driver arrives. I get in it was a mini passenger van. It was the same kind of vehicle that we all took to the market in Asuera. The only difference was this time I had the entire vehicle to myself and I could listen to whatever music I wanted to. I wasn't thrilled about the 4-hour part because I'm not a big car ride person, but it felt like a means to an end to get the hell out of there. So I was like, fine, I'll do whatever it takes. So like 45 minutes into the drive, and the drive, it's kind of boring because it's just like pure desert. The driver pulls over, gets out of the car, and lifts up the hood. And he makes a phone call, but I can't hear from inside the car. And after maybe 10 minutes, he gets back in the car, and I'm like, is everything okay? And he's like, yeah, it's fine. It's just overheated. And then we start driving again. And then 10 minutes later, he pulls over, gets out of the hood, same thing. Except this time he grabs a water bottle and dumps it into something on the hood. And again, I'm like, is everything okay? Because at this point, it does not look okay. But he reassures me like, yeah, it's fine. Everything's good. And I can like feel my anxiety starting, but I'm like, it's fine. Again, this is a means to an end to get out of Nswam and get to Marrakesh. It's just a little bump in the road. It's fine. But we start driving again, and he pulls over again and lifts up the hood, and he comes back to the car to get his water bottle or another water bottle. And I had a huge bottle of water with me, like one of those big ones. And I was so eager to get back on the road. So I was like, do you need this? And I gave him my water. So he poured both water bottles on the thing and under the car. I don't know anything about cars, so I don't know exactly what he was pouring on or what the problem was, but something was overheating and this water was at least working to get us to the next, stop. So anyway, this happened several more times. And so finally I'm like, I need to get more assertive with him so that I can get some answers. So finally I was like, what is going on? And he was like, it keeps leaking and overheating. We need to make it to the next town to get it fixed. And I'm like, how far away is that? And he told me 12 kilometers. And I know from running that 10 kilometers is about 6 miles, which doesn't seem like that far. So I'm like, okay, maybe it's 7 miles or something like that. But the problem was like, we're only making it a few miles every 10 minutes. And at this point, we had been on the road for almost 2 hours, and which was not good. We had already started losing a significant amount of time. So I was trying to be patient, but I could feel my anxiety rising. And at this point, I started regretting leaving early because I felt like I was escaping, and now I'm just in this new trap. So we finally made it to the next town, and the driver pulled up to a mechanic shop. And I knew it was going to take a second to diagnose the situation. So I told the driver, because I had to go to the bathroom. So I was like, hey, I'm going to find a place to go to the bathroom. And he was like, wait, I'll come with you. So after he talked to the mechanic and the guys, he walked with me to a nearby shop. It was like a gas station. And I thought he had to go too, which is why he came with me. But he waited outside for me, and then he walked back with me. So that was my first sign that it may have been a dangerous place for me to be alone. I wasn't sure because I just wasn't sure. So it was kind of a red flag about where we were in the desert, because we're in the middle of a desert. And when I say town, there's just like, other than this mechanic shop, there's like a mini mart, a gas station. It's very barren. There's also some horse and buggies. So it's not the kind of town where everyone owns a car. It's super basic, and we're in the middle of the desert. So anyway, we get back to the mechanic shop and they tell us that we have to take it to someone else. So at this point, I feel like I've been way too nice. So I decide to be more direct with the driver, and I ask him if he could call another driver for me. And he refuses. He's like, no, it's fine. We're going to take it to the next place to get fixed. And this is where not only I'm still anxious, but I start feeling, I guess resentful is a word for it, because I didn't want to wait. I paid for a 4-hour car trip to Marrakesh, and that was not a car trip. It was a standstill. So at that point, it became more of a principle of the matter, because I wasn't getting what I paid for. The problem is, like, I didn't really have a lot of other options, because I wasn't happy that he turned down the option for another driver. So I started Googling transportation options. But unlike America, if I were to Google that in America, first of all, there's Uber, there's Lyft, there's taxis. But even, if you just Google transportation, like in Google, you would probably get a whole list of like private car services, everything. But this is not America. So there really wasn't a crystal clear list of options. And even then I was like, I don't even know where we are. Like, even if I were to find another driver and had to call them, how would I even tell them where we are? So I pull up Google Maps to see like what the town name is. And it's still not clear. Like, we seem to be in the middle of the desert. So I was like, well, maybe there's a nearby sign that has the town name or something. So I wander closer to the main street, because the mechanic shop is kind of like further back away from the street. Not only are there no street signs, but I start looking at the very few businesses that there are. Like, the business names are like simple or non-existent. Like the mini mart, like, just didn't even have a sign. There was like a cash mart, and that's exactly what it said. So there was no like identifier of where we even were. So we drive to the other mechanic, which was basically someone's home on like this off the beaten path street. And so there was like this dingy little strip mall and market nearby. And even though it didn't look as professional as the proper mechanic shop, the mechanic, he came out of his home. He looked super hardcore. Like, he was the kind of guy you could just tell could fix anything. So immediately my hopes were up. And then the driver talked to him, and the driver comes back to me all excited. And he was like, yeah, he can get us back on the road in 30 minutes. But then, so the mechanic, and he had an assistant. So they disappeared, which I was assuming to get like materials or tools and stuff, but they don't reappear. So after like 15 minutes of them just being gone, I asked the driver again, can you please call me a new driver? And again, he refused. He's like, no, it's fine. They're going to fix it soon. And this is when I start getting shitty with the driver. Because again, up to this point, I had been way too nice to him. So I was like, they aren't even here. Like, they're not even working on it. So he was like, oh, I'll go check on them. So then the driver disappears. And then after like 15 minutes, and I'm not even exaggerating on these time frames, like, it was really long periods of time. And I would be looking at my phone. So I was like tracking how long they were gone. So after like 15 minutes, they all reappear, but the mechanic and his assistant did start working on the issue. So I'm like, okay, he said it's going to take 30 minutes. So it's going to be 30 minutes starting now. So I told the driver that I was going to go, because there was a nearby fruit market. And I was like, I'm going to go to the market and buy fruit. And he was like, I'll go with you. And I knew he didn't want fruit. And at this point, I'm not liking this guy. So I didn't really want him to go with me. But because I sensed that could possibly be unsafe for me to be alone in this town, I allowed him to come with me. And also, he did end up paying for my fruit because I think he did feel bad, but not bad enough to call me a new ride. And I'm assuming, I don't know for sure, but I'm assuming because the remaining distance to Marrakesh was about 3 hours. So if he were to call me a new driver, he's going to miss out on a huge part of the fee. But that was not my problem. Like, that was his car. This is his job. I paid for a ride to Marrakesh, and that isn't what was happening. So then I started to get really disappointed because I think it was in part 3 or part 4. I just had a bunch of stuff happening to me where it was like, it wasn't my problem and people were trying to make it my problem. So in my mind, I'm like telling myself this story. Here we go again. More shit that isn't my problem, but somehow is now becoming my problem. And as I'm eating the grapes, the mechanic and his assistant and the driver disappear again. And I'm about ready to lose my shit. So I'm like, and I feel like I have limited options because I Googled transportation. There wasn't really anything coming up. I didn't really know where I was. So luckily I was smart and I called the retreat owner and I was like, you're not going to believe this. And I explained the situation. And all I asked, I was like, can you have the hotel manager, his name was Mohammed, can you have Mohammed call for a new driver? And she was like, okay. And then when she called me back, she was like, well, Mohammed called the driver and he says they're working on it and everything's fine. And I was like, they aren't even here. Like, because again, they had disappeared for like 10 minutes again, all 3 of them. So I don't know why the driver needs to keep going with a mechanic. Like, it seemed kind of shady, right? So I'm getting frustrated because I'm like, they aren't even here. They're not actively working on it. And I tried to explain to her, the driver keeps saying that to me too, because he doesn't want me to get another ride. So please have Mohammed bypass the driver and just call a whole other ride. I need a new ride. So of course, Mohammed keeps calling the driver and the driver keeps telling him it's fine and it's not fine. And I just accept defeat because I had no idea what to do. So after 2 hours of being in this town, we finally get back on the road. And by this point, I'm feeling hopeless and defeated and honestly just feel like I'm being held hostage, especially since I'm not even totally convinced that the car is working correctly. But luckily, we make significant progress and I can tell we're getting closer to Marrakesh because the landscape starts changing because we go from being in the middle of the barren desert to you start seeing homes popping up more. It's becoming more populated. And then as we get closer, there's like billboards and bigger businesses and just like way more traffic on the road. So I start getting so excited because I'm like, okay, we're finally here. But then on the outskirts of Marrakesh, at one of the stoplights, the driver pulls over, gets out of the car and lifts the hood. And he makes another phone call. I can't hear. And I want to ask what's going on, but I'm just like so irritated and defeated at this point. But after a few minutes, he gets back in the car and he's like, it's broken again. But because we're so close to my hotel, we're probably like 30 minutes away. He's like, I'm going to call you a new driver. Part of me wants to lose my shit because I hate this guy. By this time, it had been over 8 hours since we left in Swan. And it was supposed to be a 4-hour car trip. So he's been holding me hostage for over 8 hours. But I'm like, at least we're in Marrakesh now and he's calling me a new driver. But when I get out of the car, because I get out of the car just to get some fresh air, and I see amongst the traffic, there's like an abundance of taxi cabs. And it was like one of those movie moments where like a choir of angels is singing because I'm like, oh my God, hallelujah, I'm just going to catch a cab. So I tell the driver, I'm like, I'm just going to catch a taxi. And as I was getting my bags out of the car, he hails one for me and then grabs my bags to help me get them in the car. And I say to him, I'm like, you're paying for my taxi, right? Because after being his hostage all day, I'm not paying for a trip that I've already paid for. So luckily he did not argue because again, like he already got the majority of his fare, so he didn't give a shit. And so he paid the driver. I get in the car. I didn't even say goodbye to him. I was so pissed and I had zero respect for him because the only reason he didn't call for a new driver 3 hours prior is because he wanted his fee. And it was like I had to suffer for his greed. And I was so angry at him. But the taxi driver was super nice and he was trying to make small talk, but I was so exhausted because the day had been very stressful and the only thing that I had eaten were grapes and a banana. So I was like running on fumes. So I gave the driver like the Cliff Notes version about, what my day had been like. And the taxi driver was like, yeah, he's nice, but you can tell he's not very smart. And I thought that was so interesting because the only interaction this taxi driver had with him was exchanging the money. So I was like, oh, that's so interesting that he picked up on that immediately. So again, it was like, I don't know, maybe a 20-minute, 30-minute drive to my hotel. So we finally arrive at the hotel and I feel this huge wave of relief. But then the taxi driver says to me, your driver didn't give me enough money. And I almost crashed out to the point where I was so angry and I can't even describe how I was feeling, but I felt like I could murder someone with my bare hands. And I felt it boiling up in me. But because I've been practicing emotional regulation for many years, and I've done a lot of inner work, I have some subconscious programming that allows me to think rationally in these emotionally intense moments. So luckily my logic switched on and I was like, okay, do I think this guy is scamming me? Yes, because I did think that. But then I was like, is it possible that the driver didn't give him enough money? Also, yes, because he was an idiot and he really didn't give a shit about me because he held me hostage all day. So those are both assumptions, but they both could have been true. And I was like, okay, will going batshit crazy Chicago on this guy solve anything? Because I don't know which one of those is true. And going crazy on him is not going to solve anything. So I thought about it and I only had 200 dirham on me, which is only about 20 US dollars, which in my mind, again, it had been over 8 hours. So that was a small price to be free of the entire situation. So because I knew if I spoke to him, I was just going to crash out and go off on him without saying a word, I opened up my money, pulled out my 200 dirham and handed it to him. And he said to me, he was like, it's not your fault. And I didn't know what that meant, but I looked him dead in the eye because again, all this shit that happened during the day wasn't my problem, but I had to deal with it. So whatever he meant, I knew it wasn't my fault. So I looked him dead in the eye and I was like, I know. And I just shut the door and walked as fast as I could to the lobby to get rid of the entire day. So that is where we end in part 8. And my glow tip for this part is resourcefulness, assertiveness, and choosing your response. Because there were many old versions of me that wouldn't have advocated for myself. So the fact that I repeatedly asked him to call me a new driver was advocating for myself. My attempt to Google other transportation options was also resourcefulness and advocating for myself. Also, calling the retreat owner to have her ask the hotel owner to call me a new ride was also resourcefulness and advocating for myself. Did any of those things work out? No, but that's not the point. The point is I was at least advocating for myself and was okay with whatever happened. Because honestly, the being accepting part was the main reason why I didn't lose my shit that day, because it was very stressful, and I did feel like I was being held hostage, which is a super helpless place to be. So, that was part 8. The stories are not over. So stay tuned next week for part 9. I have more exciting stories coming up. So I'll see you next week.